So I'm Nikki Muffin. I first cosplayed at ConnectiCon 2023 when I was 16 years old. My friend said, "Hey, there's these things called conventions in Japan. People dress up as their favorite characters," and my jaw hit the floor, and I've been addicted to it ever since. So here we are. So I'm just gonna kind of go over some things that I have messed up along the way and lessons that I've learned from it, and kind of some tips and tricks. And happy to answer any questions. If you guys like have a question in the middle, just raise your hand. Don't worry about interrupting me. Happy to make it like more interactive. But all right, step one: choose a costume. Not quite as easy as it may sound. I recommend that you choose a character that you really, really love. Not just a character that your friends say you look like, or friends like suggest that you want to do in a group, maybe if you're not that passionate about it. Because if you start a project that you're not super into, you're never going to finish it. That's my personal experience. And then the second step is assess your time frame. So be realistic about how much time you have if there's a specific event or convention that you need to wear this to. Start really early. Think about how much time you have in your life to kind of commit to doing cosplay. Like, do you have time every day after work or school to work on it? Or is it really only going to be on the weekends? Everything takes twice as long as you think it will. So keep that in mind. Envision the final product. So think about like, how will this costume look on me? All of these like crazy characters with, very different than realistic figures, just try to envision how the costume will look on you. So you have kind of realistic expectations of what you can accomplish and how you can get through. And the next step is consider the reception. So when you wear a costume, luckily there's a lot of respect for cosplayers nowadays, and that community seems to be building. But just mentally prepare that you're kind of putting yourself on display a little bit. You're kind of opening yourself up to people, for people to like look at you and look at your costume. So you're going to get all kinds of reactions, from excitement to like guessing the wrong character to confusion, or and also think about maybe like the character that you're cosplaying. You might get different types of comments depending on like that character and their personality. Like, you dress up as Homelander from The Boys, who is notoriously a huge asshole, you might get like some snarky kind of comments. So just kind of think about that ahead of time. Workspace and tools. You will take up a large area while working. Be considerate of your housemates. This is my cat. He is not being considerate of the costume that I'm making right there, because he likes to lay on my fabric, whatever I make. So just think about the fact that, so I lived in Malden for 10 years. I just moved like a year ago, but I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. It was not a lot of space. I lived there with my boyfriend the whole time. When I was working on something, it looked like a bomb went off. Like it was just like scraps of fabric everywhere. It took up the whole floor. Just be considerate of other people, and also yourself too, because you don't want to be like tripping over your stuff all the time. So at the end of the day, I always tried to make a point to fold up everything and kind of stuff it in a corner, or just clean up to like kind of keep your sanity. Here is a list of a bunch of things that I use very often when I'm creating cosplay. So you really do need a sewing machine. Even if it's a small, inexpensive one, it'll make things go a lot faster and make your life a lot easier. There are really cheap ones nowadays. So I really highly suggest getting that one. When I started, I was using my mom's sewing machine from the 1980s. It worked. It did the job. It got things done. There's all different types of glue. Understanding glue is kind of a whole nother thing we'll go over later. Fabric scissors, there's this sort of like sacred, do not use your fabric scissors for anything except for fabric. I 100% endorse that. It'll dull the scissors, or, get sticky things on them or whatever. You need designated fabric scissors, in my opinion. I love to mark up fabric with chalk. That's my favorite way to mark it up. There's all different kinds of other things out there. Chalk is my favorite. It comes off pretty easily with just like a wet sponge or some spit, if you kind of on the fly there. The fabric, I would recommend iron your fabric before using it to make anything. It'll come, folded and wrinkly, and once you cut it and make it into something, it'll be a lot harder to iron. So just straight up iron it first. I use newspaper to make all my patterns. Those free leaflets you get in Malden, with all the like ads for the groceries, and that's what like all of my costumes have been made out of for the past 10 years. And then eyelets, I love those. It's those little metal circle things. You can get them at, I want to say Joann's, but I can't anymore. You get them at like any kind of, you know, fabric store or place like that, and on Amazon too. And you just kind of take a hammer and whack them in. And I really recommend that because lacing up things is a good way to make them fit really easily. So if something, you know, you're kind of struggling with the fit of it, like if you're making a gauntlet, instead of trying to make like a zipper or something where the seams have to match up perfectly, if you lace it up, then there you go. It's just easier to tighten and loosen and get on and off. So cosplay room. As I mentioned, I lived in a one-bedroom apartment for 10 years. I have now graduated to having a designated room for costumes. Slide is sort of a mix of a warning and also ambition. Like, this is what you might end up with someday after 22 years of it. So this photo on the left is all bins. This is all supplies. This is all costumes. And then I have a wardrobe and a closet, like full of costumes. This hobby takes up a lot of space, especially the materials and the tools. You end up accruing a lot of things over time. So just keep that in mind. It is possible to do stuff in a small space. It just takes kind of a lot, maybe a little extra organization. So prepare and design. So first step, I would say gather reference images of the character that you're looking to cosplay as from multiple angles, not just the front. If you can get like a video game character, that's great. Maybe you can kind of turn the camera around them to get different angles. You could also, there's a lot of figures of characters now. Those are great. You can spin them around and pick them up and, you know, see the character from all angles. So that's a great reference. What I like to do is list the components. So I literally write down a list of every single piece of this costume. So I would look at Astrid here from head to toe, be like, okay, I need a wig. I need to braid the wig. She has shoulder pads. She has a shirt. She has gauntlets, you know, to kind of just write everything down to try and make sure you keep track of everything. And then I would say try to estimate how much fabric you need. That's tough. Always leave extra in case you mess up or need more than expected. You will go over budget. It's happened to me every single time. So leave some wiggle room for that. And then also you might not have time to make every single thing. So kind of decide if there's certain pieces of it that you could live without for now, maybe until the next event and you have more time to work on it. Consider practicability. You will have to pee at some point in this outfit. If you have like a full bodysuit underneath all of these like layers of armor, it is going to be very difficult to go to the bathroom. Also consider temperature. This is a full fur outfit. I sweat a lot in this at one convention and learned not to wear it in the middle of the summer. I think that's everything there. This is just a photo. So when I say I write down everything, this is my little notebook. I have this list on the left of all the different components of my costume. I also kind of jot down ideas in the notebook, which is, I don't know, it's just really helpful for me to have like that reference. And of course, I'm laying there at like 2 a.m. trying to sleep and I think of something awesome for my costume. So I need to have a notebook to like jot it down in and then try to go back to sleep. I also do some sketches. So again, you probably can't see it that good from this, but I kind of drew the outfit and then did measurements. I wrote down, from here to here, it should be this number of inches. From here to here, it should be this number of inches. And I just have a flexible 5-foot long measuring tape, also super essential, that I use. And I just kind of sit there and, with my own body and sort of try to estimate, what I think the measurements need to be. So here's the result of that costume. I also wanted to say, so I did, I just said some kind of quick things about cosplay clip, but there is a whole panel today at noon on Before You Build. So check that out if you want more tips on how to prepare for building a costume. So as I mentioned, you don't have to do everything all at once. This is my Astrid costume that you saw a couple slides ago, and I didn't make the axe at first. I didn't have time. That was the piece I decided I could live without if I didn't have time to make it. So it actually was years later when the next movie came out that I ended up going back and building more. Wigs, oh boy. Wigs are plastic, not hair. This is like wig 101. So you can't treat it the same way that you would treat human hair. Hot water is a great way to make fibers pliable. It can also melt them if you use too hot water or have it like submerged for too long. So you can use hot water to curl or straighten. Some people style their wigs. So this is, you can see Princess Peach has these little flippy things here. Some people style them. You can use like glue. I always just use maximum hold hair gel for like punks with mohawks, you know, that kind of like really, really good quality hair gel, because that way you can wash it out if you need to, if you want to change something, or if you ever, so like this wig in particular, I put it away to store it. And then when I took it out again, the flips on one side still looked perfect. The other flips had gotten kind of crushed while it was in storage. But because I used hair gel, I was able to kind of wash them out and redo them, rather than kind of having the wig be ruined forever sort of thing. If you're cutting wigs is so scary, so stressful. Always cut longer than you think you'll need, because you can always go shorter, you can never go longer, right? Never cut straight lines straight across. Like if you're cutting bangs, you'll see a picture later, I think, of where I messed that up. If you hold the scissors vertically instead and just kind of snip, 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 then you'll get more of like a slightly uneven, but more natural looking cut. You could also always go to a hairdresser, and hairdressers will like cut a wig for you, you know, if you pay them a fee. So think about that option as well if you're really cutting something funky or complicated. There's kind of two types of wigs. There's a very blurred line between them, but professional wigs are going to cost more money. You know, I would say these are probably $60 plus. They're wigs, kind of professional wigs, the way that I think of them, and I'm making this term up, right, is sort of wigs that are kind of intended for people to wear on a day-to-day basis and maybe not necessarily intended for cosplay. So it's harder to find wigs in crazy fun colors, right, that are, there are some out there, of course, you know, that are made for cosplay, but wigs have wefts, so it's like layers of hair, and a more expensive wig will have more wefts closer together, so it'll be higher volume. It'll also probably have less hair fall out of it when you're working with it or trying to brush it or anything. There are some wigs out there you can buy with a part down the back. So if you take a regular wig and try to part it like you would hair, you won't get this. You will get you will see the wefts in the back, and it won't look great. If you did really loose, low pony pigtails, you could probably cover that up. And you can also, if you do kind of like a zigzag part, like a really, really ziggy-zaggy part, that'll help hide the wefts too, but parting regular wigs is pretty tough. So here's just a couple examples of wigs I've styled. So these wigs have, like this one, her little buns there, they have, it's a styrofoam ball inside of it, right? And I put her in pigtails, I put the styrofoam ball over the pigtail and wrapped the hair around the ball. This one I actually needed extra hair, so this was a wig that you could buy extra hair pieces for. Again, kind of like more of a professional wig. It was actually that one that I showed on the last page. So as you can see, this one was curly, so I had to straighten it with nearly boiling water by just dumping, you know, really hot water on it and letting it dry. And then I was able to style it. And then nurse dry too, same thing. There's it's actually like a fabric tube in there to make it have more volume, because if I just tried to use hair to do that, right, it would just kind of be not thick enough. So costume wigs, also not a bad option. So just remember about costume wigs, it may not look like the picture, right? So this is a picture of a costume wig, and we'll show you on the next slide what it really ended up looking like. Remember that you get what you pay for, as I just talked about. The hair will be thinner, it might fall out more, and you might see the wefts when you're trying to style it. So this is what that wig looked like when it came in the mail. I was able to save it by taking these curlers from the dollar store, putting the hair in curlers, and then dunked it in nearly boiling water in my grandmother's bathtub. I put the like boiling water on a in the bathtub on a, you know, pot holder, of course, and let it dry for a couple days. Takes a long, long time to dry, but then it ended up came out being curly again. So it is possible to work with cheap wigs. And the $10 wig is not the worst option, but, you know, again, just kind of be realistic about your expectations of it. Sewing tips. Rest in peace, Joann's. But Michael's bought them, so we might see fabric in Michael's stores hopefully soon. But however, we're in the Boston area, and there's a lot of really cool local fabric shops around here too. I highly recommend buying fabric in person if you can. If you have to get it on Amazon is kind of a like decent option because usually you can return it. But just check on that before because some of it's cut to the yard and may or may not be able to return it. But just try to buy it in person. It really helps to see and feel what you're really getting yourself into. It also that you can't tell online how see-through a fabric is. So if you're planning on making like a top that's one layer and you get the fabric and realize that you can see right through it, then like, okay, maybe this isn't going to work the way that I thought, When you're picking out fabric, look at the very edge of the fabric if you're buying it in person and see if it's fraying or how easily it frays. Some fabrics don't fray. Those are amazing. I love those. Those are my favorite. If they do fray, you're going to have to hem that seam. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a mess. And your costume will, get worn over time. Stretchiness, does it stretch both this way and this way? That would be what they call four-way stretch. Does it stretch one way, but not the other way? Think about that if you're trying to make something. So like I was making like a really tight top and I had two-way stretch. I would want to make sure the stretch was going that direction. So when I'm buying the fabric, I got to figure out, okay, I'm going to cut it to this width because I need the stretch to go that way. So that can also help you figure out how much fabric to buy. Bias tape is what makes these little like edges, like on this outfit here, the gray. You can kind of make your own bias tape, which is what I did with that costume by taking thin strips of fabric and then ironing it to fold the ends in. But bias tape, it already comes like that. So it's a pretty cheap option to help make put like trim on outfits and make it look pretty cool. You can buy stiffener for fabric. There's like sprays and things that you can iron on. I like to use blackout curtains, the backing for blackout curtains, which you could get at Joann's. But it's like a stiffer fabric. It's usually white. I think they might sell black too. But I would usually sew a piece of fabric on top of that if I was using, if I wanted something to be a little bit stiffer, like maybe a collar is popping up or something like that. Hardware, so I'm talking about D-rings, O-rings, studs, spikes, all of which are on this crazy necromancer outfit in the picture. So that can really make your costume pop and like look really cool with pretty little effort, but some money because those metal pieces, will cost you. And then the last thing here, understand complicated versus tedious work. So just kind of keep in mind, this costume is not that complicated. It looks pretty cool, but it's pretty simple. It was a bunch of strips and then the studs on top. So that was tedious work, what I would call. And this costume is all flat pieces that are put together on the skirt is, 4 separate with 2 more like extra pieces. So this was a very tedious costume, but it wasn't as complicated as it looks. So you can kind of figure out, what's going to be more challenging and what's just going to take 0 brain power and a lot of effort. Fur, oh boy. Fur can make a huge mess if you try to just cut it with scissors, like fur fabric. So what I recommend is you flip over the fur onto the back and cut the backing of the fabric with a razor blade. You can do it with an open pair of scissors. That's dangerous. Do as I say, not as I do. But just be really, really careful. You can kind of go along and just kind of make like little cuts. It doesn't have to be a super smooth cut. And then you can kind of just pull it apart and see, maybe there's a couple more spots that you need to cut a little bit more. But if you do that really gently, you will, first of all, avoid getting like whatever crazy fur hair all over the floor. And also the fabric that you're cutting, the fur will be more full and not have like sort of a bald spot, I guess, or, like shorter filled spot. So, and then the other thing with fur is when you are pinning 2 pieces of fur together, stuff all the fur inside of it. So if this is the furry side, you have the seam here, stuff all the fur inside like that, because otherwise, when you flip it over, you'll get a very, very distinct seam in the fur. And also I recommend going online and just searching real quick. There's a lot of like fur, kind of tips online about that too. And it's a little tough to work with, but it can look really cool. Creativity saves money. The wings in this costume are made from plastic ferns that I bought from like fake plants at Michael's. and cut them all up. There was this one time where I literally had my entire family, both my parents and my brother, sitting in the living room cutting these little ferns to make them look like feathers. Yeah, pretty funny, but it saved me so much money because trying to get feathers that were that size, like size and length, I mean, massively expensive. So when you're shopping around, you can roam around the dollar store, Home Depot, Target, any of these like big stores, and just look for an object that's sort of the size and shape of what you're looking for. This costume has these little round like shields on the hips. They were, I think that one was an Ocean State job lot. The little thing that you put under a potted plant so it doesn't leak water everywhere. Like, so yeah, you can get creative with it and save yourself some dough. All right, I'm gonna speed through the rest of this. It's 10:58. Footwear, prioritize comfort. Wedges are your friend. Platforms are your friend. Stilettos are not your friend. Anything with a really thin heel is going to put a lot more pressure on your foot. I also highly recommend preventing blisters. So wear these shoes for a little bit, you know, before the con and figure out, are there spots where it's kind of wearing on you? Bring a pile of Band-Aids in your pocket, always a good idea. Because once you get blisters, even if you put a Band-Aid on it, it's still going to be really uncomfortable wearing those shoes. You could also consider having like more comfortable shoes for when you're actually at the con, and then change into like these crazy things for photo shoots. I did not wear those like around the con. Thick socks will also help, like padding on the bottom of your feet. There's a lot of these conventions are in convention centers that are just on a concrete floor, and that is just murder on your feet. It's a lot more stressful on your feet, and having a little bit of cushion will really help you. Props. There is a foam clay prop panel at 11:30. So I'm gonna not say a ton about props, but just remember, pretty much every convention nowadays has some rules about props. A lot of conventions also have a prop check. So when you first get there, they want to look at your prop and make sure, okay, no, you can't actually, can you kill anybody with this? And they put a little tag on it, you know, so make sure you're following the rules of the convention just to avoid any issues. You are going to be carrying this thing around all day. You are going to get sick of it. Make sure that it's as lightweight as possible. Different types of foam you can use to try and make it lighter. That necromancer you saw, I thought it'd be really cool to make a copper pipe for like the base of the staff, because I thought the copper would be like really cool looking. It's heavy. My wrist would hurt. Like it was terrible. So PVC pipe would have been a much better option. My other tip with props is make a holster. Anything that you're carrying in your hands, if it's possible to make something where you could strap it to your back or your hip or whatever, just so you can put it down attached to your person and have your hands free, especially at, so one of my favorite conventions is PAX, video game convention. The whole point of it is to go around and play different video games. Well, most video games, you pick up a controller and you need both of your hands in order to play it, right? So whenever I brought a prop to PAX that I didn't have a holster for, I found myself running back like 10 times a day. Oh, where was that booth I was just at? Because I left my prop behind because I put it down next to me, played the game, and then walked out. So having a holster is always great. Again, just so you can have your hands free, and then also, you know, so you don't lose track of your prop. Glue. Oh, there's so many different types of glue. A couple of my favorites are Gorilla Glue, which really does like kind of work on anything, and contact cement. Contact cement is something that's an instant bond. It is 11 o'clock, so I think I'm gonna keep going. But if you guys need to go or want to go to another panel or whatever, obviously totally fine. Contact cement is something that will create an instant bond. So you put it on both pieces, you heat it up a little bit, you stick them together, boom, there you go, you're done. It kind of dries instantly. Gorilla Glue will take a couple hours. I highly recommend overnight. When you are gluing things together, like with Gorilla Glue over a longer period of time, put some weight on them to press it together. Heavy books are great for that. Don't let the comic store guy hear me say this. There are comic books that are trades, big, thick, heavy books. My boyfriend collects them, and I use them to press stuff together to glue all the time. And he'll be like, are you using my $500 book to glue your stuff together? And I'm like, this is working great. It's great value. The other thing is New England is humid. So you have these drying times, you know, on the bottle of the glue that says like, oh, well, it'll cure within like, you know, it'll hold within an hour and then cures fully in 24 hours. Just don't listen to that. Try to double it if you can, you know, try to have it, let it dry as long as possible because it's a really humid climate here in New England. So drying can take longer than you think. LEDs, actually way easier than you think and can make your costume look really, really cool. You can just buy them on Amazon. They'll have a USB plug on one end and a strip of lights on the other. A lot of the lights, if it's a light strip that has like individual bulbs, you can just cut it to whatever length you want. It comes with kind of like directions on how to do that usually. And then you just get a battery pack like you'd use for maybe charging your phone or whatever, that you can plug a USB into and plug it into that. And you can hide that maybe in your weapon somewhere or on your person. This one, I have a battery pack in between my shoulder blades for this. This type of LED, it's like a strip light. That uses way more battery than the individual little tiny lights. So something to kind of test ahead of time if you're trying to do LEDs, plug them in, plug it in with your battery, see how long it lasts, and you can kind of figure out. So this one, I really wanted to use these lights and they were really cool. So I bought this like giant $40, like heavy duty battery pack to last like 8 hours. But that thing got hot. I had it in between my shoulder blades in a little pouch and I was like sweaty just from the heat of that battery pack, like really warming me up. So think of that too when you're thinking about lights. And you can either, these ones are just taped on to the armor shoulder pads there because I wanted to be able to take them on and off. And you could also sew them on, which I don't know if this little video will work. So this backpack, I have the LEDs and I literally sewed that strip on like around the edge of the star there. So, all right. I'll watch the video 1,000 times. Makeup. I'm not super crazy awesome at makeup, but my tip is to blend what the character looks like with what looks good on you and always practice it ahead of time because makeup can really make or break a cosplay look. So if you test it out on yourself, then you'll have an idea of what you're getting into. Also, it can take a really long time to put this stuff on your face, right? So if you're at a con and all your friends are like, okay, we're ready to go. And you're like, great, I just need to put my makeup on. And that takes like half an hour sometimes. So practicing ahead of time can help, again, figure out how long it takes, but then also figure out like how to tweak it and make it look good on yourself. Photos and videos. You have worked so hard on this costume that I just told you about for hours and hours. Make sure that you get some awesome pictures of it. Something that I did not do early on in my career. Granted, again, this was the early 2000s. We didn't have cameras on our phones yet, so just now we have so much opportunity. Your phones can take such cool pictures. Take advantage of it. I always recommend kind of just doing some practice poses in the mirror at home. And different characters have different personalities, right? Like play with that and try to find something that you think looks cool. Photo booths, a lot of cons have photo booths at different areas now. Take advantage of those. And then outdoor spaces at cons too. Take advantage of that. You can get some really, really cool pictures. Play with lighting and angles. So this photo is kind of like shadowy in the back or in the front and like darker in the back. That came out kind of cool. But if you're at a con and somebody just wants to take a picture of you in the hallway, take a quick check and figure out where the windows are. Some of these have like huge windows, if they're behind you, just turn around and have the person take a picture of you the other way. Because if you pose with windows behind you, it will wash you out and make you dark and won't be able to see the costume very good. And the back room, again, this one was like on purpose and looks really cool, but you don't want that for like a hall shot. But it can be fun, for photos that if you're like, I think this was a cell phone one that my friend took. Also, like I said, play with angles. So think about like having the camera down, like looking up at you if you're like a cool imposing character, different poses like squatting and, play with like that kind of stuff too. Also free versus professional photos. So there's a lot of cosplay photographers out there. It's becoming like a really cool big thing. There are a lot of people that will charge you to take photos of you and you can get some really, really cool shots. The other thing is photographers can help you with posing, right? If this is what they do and they take pictures of cosplayers all the time, they can help give you some tips like, hey, you turn your head this way or hold your weapon like this, so think about that value. If you decide to do a professional photo shoot, it could help you like kind of learn how to pose a little bit. Also, there's a photo shoot panel at 2 p.m. So don't forget to go check that out for more on photos. And then again, videos, like you saw the little video of Princess Peach. Every phone can take a video now. So you could take some quick videos too. That can be really fun. Cosplay is not consent. I won't go too deep into this. I think that this is something that a lot of cons are really doing a great job lately of communicating to people. You can't just run up to a cosplayer and hug them. Oh my God, that's happened to me before and like crushed my armor and like freaking out on the inside screaming. So check out a lot of cons have anti-harassment policies just in general, but then also costume specific policies. Remember that it's okay to say no to a picture. I know that you are really excited about your costume and you love wearing it and you love when people ask for photos, but sometimes you need to just sit and eat, especially if you're like sitting down, half your armor's on the floor, you're taking a break, you're stuffing your face with a sandwich. And if someone comes up and is like, oh, can I get a photo? You could be like, oh, I'm just gonna finish the sandwich, but like, if you're gonna hang around for a little bit, I'll be back up and running in like a few minutes, or, you don't have to like be a jerk about it unless you want to be, I don't care. But it is okay to say no to a picture. You have to maintain the cosplay. I mean, wearing cosplay is like kind of a lot of work, right? Like there's a lot of sweat in weird places and, painful things digging into you sometimes. And remember like self-care. So it's okay to say no. Having a cosplay handler, I will never in my life be able to pay back all of the karma to all of my friends and all of my family. Some of them are on Zoom. I love you guys that have helped hold my prop so I can do something, take a photo of me and someone that asked, can I get a photo with you? Carry things around. Hey, this piece is falling off. Can you get it and pin it back on? Or, cosplaying with others, like your friends, around you is absolutely priceless. Oh, one other thing is gloves and masks. So items that you might be taking off frequently because they're kind of uncomfortable, keep those in mind too. So like for that PAX convention where you're playing the video games all the time, wearing full gloves, like not the greatest idea. If you could figure out maybe fingerless gloves or like with Princess Peach, maybe those little sleeves that then, just wrap around your one middle finger and leave your palms free. Your palms get sweaty in gloves too. So just consider that things that you might be taking off frequently and putting back on frequently. And then if someone's asking for a picture and your gloves are off, you're like, oh, okay, wait a second, just kind of like keep in mind the things that you might need to do that with. And again, maybe if you could avoid it by wearing fingerless gloves or something like that. Almost at the very end here, so take pride in your work. This is the wall in my room that you saw earlier. There's my little sewing machine there. I took the time to print off these photos of some of my favorite photos of my costumes over the years and hung them up on the wall. This was like a big mental step for me, right? Like I've hung a bunch of photos of myself on the wall, like what the hell? But this is my art. This is what I do. I love it. And I wanted to display it. And then every time I'm sewing and it's going horribly, I can look up and be like, I can do this. Like I did that and that and that, take inspiration from yourself as well. So that's the end. Thank you, everybody. If you have, I know I'm over the time a little bit. It's 11:11. So if you have any questions for me right now, fire away while I kind of clean up and get out of here. That's my Instagram. Hi, what's up?
First of all, I love your earrings.
Oh, thanks.
I've just been watching them all the time while you were speaking, and I thought that's a cool earrings that you had.
I got them on Shein.
And the other thing I was mentioning, rest in peace, Joanne's, but you mentioned that there were other fabric stores or other places that you recommended were around the Boston area for people who might want to purchase things for cosplay. Is it okay if you mention maybe where some of those locations are and maybe what you recommend them for?
Yeah, I don't know if I know the names of the stores off the top of my head. In the city, in like downtown Crossing Chinatown, there's a couple. Cambridge has a few. Also, don't discount like thrift stores if you even just want to buy like a big piece of fabric, from a thrift store. If there's like some curtains, oh well, what is a curtain except a piece of fabric with like the edges, so
I've done curtains.
yes, absolutely.
Curtains.
Yeah, I've heard if you can take a round tablecloth, you cut a hole in a minute, so in the middle of it, like circle skirt, done. Pretty easy. So yeah, get creative with that. But I can't think of like names of ones off the top of my head. But yeah, just go on, Google Maps or whatever, and check them out. And they usually have a lot of reviews and then some more details. But also consider that like the price of fabric at those places might be a little bit more than what you're used to at Joann's as well. So what's up?
I working with like plastics for cosplay, trying to glue them together. I found that Gorilla Glue hasn't really been like the best choice because they're nothing. I started using JV Weld, but like contact cement. Is that good for plastics as well?
Yes, I mentioned that earlier. That is, yeah. I have used that successfully with it. Two hard pieces of plastic, it might pop off. I've used like a hard and a soft, so experiment with that a little bit. But yeah, that stuff, it's really, if you take two pieces of foam that are glued together with contact cement and try to rip them apart, you will see like the strings, like awesome looking cheese, you know, kind of like pulling apart, like it will fight for, you know, the stickiness that it is,
I
so.
will also share, I tried using super glue, and then if it's like somewhere very warm, it will melt again, so.
Yeah, I
Yes.
had little melt trying to
Yeah.
use like Gorilla Glue on them, so I used JV Weld to like use that with like a whole. That's good. That's nice that the contact cement like bends against it.
Yeah. It's awesome stuff. It will dry out like as soon as you open the bottle. It feels like every time I go to a new project and I look at my old bottle of contact cement, it's like a solid, you know, dried out thing. So I do have to like keep buying. So I buy the littlest bottle that you can. Don't buy the big one. It's not a great deal because it'll dry out and you won't be able to use it. So
Unless you're
Once you open it, try.
yeah, exactly. If you're gonna use small ones, go for it.
Probably, you don't get the glue on.
Oh my, oh yeah, and like heating up the contact cement to cure it sounds like it's safer for your hands and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Super glue might not hold up to water very well.
Yeah, and again, you're gonna leave stuff in a hot car potentially, right? You're gonna leave your costume in a hot car at the con, maybe, you know, think about that for paint and for glue. Cool. Thank you guys. Have an awesome day.